Hey guys, Marissa at kitchentablestamper.com. Today I've got this beautiful thinking of you card. We're going to play with a fun watercolor technique here. And this is card number 3 out of 4, the paper and ink card class for August. The rest of the class looks like this. Here's card number 1, 2. Then today's card is number 3. And this is card number 4. Paper and ink cards is once a month in my Rolling Meadows home studio. So if you live in the Chicago area and you want to join me for a card class, you can email Marissa at kitchentablestamper.com. If you're not local, no problem. Anybody who places an order at marisaalvarez.stampinup.net now through August 31st, 2019, using this host code, will receive the kits for this class free and automatically when I close the host code. Alright guys, so the stamp set that I'm using today is the Stampin' Up! Beautiful Day stamp set. It's in the 2019-2020 annual catalog. It's got this big bold art and a couple of useful greetings. And we're going to pair it up with the Layered Leaves embossing folder. And this gorgeous mint macaron textile ribbon, a little bit of vellum, and this watercolor technique. It really makes such a stunning card with the vellum and the ribbon, the watercoloring. The other supplies that you'll need to make this card, I've got my sprig punch. Now my sprig punch is already punched because I've got the kit here. And if you get the kit, it'll be punched for you too. And my embossing is already done in my kit. And if you get the kit, it'll be done for you too. I've got my tailor tag punch. I like to use that for the dovetail ends. Stampin' pads for this project are soft seafoam, mint macaron, pear pizzazz, crumb cake, and soft suede. Let's take a look at the kit. Inside the kit, you'll find your 8.5 by 5.5 card base is scored at 4 1/4 and embossed with the layered leaves. We've got the mint macaron ribbon here about 8 inches. This was cut with the stitched shapes, the largest stitched circle. There's a piece of watercolor paper in there for you. Your crumb cake piece is 1/2 by 4. Your Garden Lane Designer Series papers are, let's see here, the Mossy Meadow one is 1 by 4. That's this one. And the soft seafoam floral one is 3/4 by 4. We've got a little sprig punch. It's punched from vellum. Alright, let's get started with this watercoloring technique so our butterfly can dry a little bit. I'm going to get the Stampin' pads and we'll get this butterfly colored. Okay, so I've got my Stampin' pads here. Pear pizzazz, mint macaron, soft seafoam. Got my big butterfly image and my crumb cake Stampin' pad. I'm going to ink up my butterfly really well with crumb cake. And I'm going to stamp it on the watercolor paper. You want to walk your fingers around and get a really good impression. Now we're also going to grab some scratch paper here and we're going to stamp on that stitched circle also. We're going to ink up again with crumb cake. And then you want to stamp so that the butterfly spans the entire circle. The wings are going to pop off the ends. You're mostly concerned here that you get the antennas. Alright, so we've got our butterflies. We're going to put away the cardstock one for a little bit and work on the watercolor paper. I've got my aqua painters and we're going to go ahead and just very lightly swipe in with clean water on these inside segments here of the butterfly. We're just wetting the watercolor paper, kind of setting up a base. Pick up some soft seafoam and we're going to very gently just color in those segments. Now don't be surprised as you go, the crumb cake lines are going to start to melt. And it's not a big deal. That's part of this fun technique. You can start in the kind of clefts of the butterfly wing here, laying down a little bit more color, and then kind of spreading out to the end where the color can soften up. I'm gonna grab some Pear Pizzazz here and work from the center on these segments so we get a blending of the two shades of green and even a little bit of a blending into the crumb cake too. All right, then we're gonna bring our mint macaron. We're gonna mix the ink with some water, and then we're gonna fill in these outside segments. And we're using a very wet brush here and a lightly saturated ink. We're letting the mint ink and the crumb cake ink mingle a little bit. It's okay. And we're bringing a little bit more ink in as we go, kind of adding a little more saturation. And then in these kind of cleft areas here, I'm going to go in with even a little bit more ink, kind of deepen the shadows. And then we'll repeat that same process in all of these other segments here. Just kind of washing the color out of the brush as we go, and then reloading, letting the lines of crumb cake melt together with the other blues and greens. All right, we're coming to the end here. We've got all of our color in, and I'm just reinforcing some of these little shadowy areas. I'm pretty happy with that. I don't feel like anywhere really washed out completely with the crumb cake, but if you have any places that you feel like your lines had washed out and you lost definition at that point, or at this point, you can go in with your aqua painter and a little crumb cake, and you could just kind of work back in any place where the line looks like maybe it was lost. And then I will also at this point go in and with a little bit of ink, crumb cake ink on my brush, I'll go over the body of the butterfly to just make it a little bit more bold. Right here, looks like my lines got washed out just a little bit. So I'm just taking the tip of the brush with the littlest bit of crumb cake ink and bringing those lines back in. So there's our beautiful butterfly, and we're gonna let that dry before we cut it out. Got one more bit of stamping to do. So I'm gonna clear away these Stampin' pads and get the soft suede. I've got my soft suede, my crumb cake, and my always thinking of you greeting. Now, I think that always thinking of you sounds a little bit stalker-like. I think thinking of you is a little bit less obsessive. So I'm gonna ink off, or I'm gonna mask off always. I'm just taking some cellophane tape here. I'm gonna cover up always. I'm gonna ink up thinking of you, and then pull away the tape. Now the ink is not gonna dry on that tape, so make sure that you get rid of it before it gets on anything in your project. So we're gonna go about center here, and we're gonna stamp thinking of you lightly. We wanna leave enough room for the ribbon, so just keep that part in mind. And there's thinking of you. Fun what a little bit of tape will do for changing up a sentiment. Definitely a sentiment I'll use more often. All right, now let's get our sample in here, and we're gonna do some assembly while we leave our butterfly just a bit longer to dry. Let's go ahead and tie a little bow from this beautiful textile ribbon. It's got a little bit of a sheen to it, kind of almost a rough texture. It's a really interesting ribbon, ties like butter. It's beautiful. Okay, that was a little big, and a little smaller one. Trim off the tails. Now we're gonna grab our designer series paper here. On the darker one, this kind of mossy meadow background one, we're gonna cut that one with just the tiniest little clip off the edge for the dovetail. We want to conserve all of that one. This one we're going to do the same, give a little dovetail cut on the one side. Beautiful. And our sentiment, same thing. And I like to go until I can see the sentiment and then kind of back out. I feel like that gives me the best idea of my placement for this little dovetail. Get some snail adhesive. And we're gonna snail down this first bit kind of at a downward angle. Then our soft seafoam paper, designer series paper, we're gonna go at a little bit of an upward angle here. You don't want to burnish that one down too hard because we're gonna put our Whisper white circle down and we're gonna tuck the end of it just underneath that designer series paper, just a little bit. It's about 1/4 of an inch from the edge, and we want our butterfly to be kind of soaring at an angle. Thinking of you, not always, just a reasonable amount. I guess we could write the extension of that inside. We're gonna put that one on the card, a little shorter than the other 3. Now we need some mini glue dots. Let's get that little sprig. We're gonna put a mini glue dot and pop it down so that it doesn't cover our greeting. All right, that pretty bow. Let's get a glue dot on the back of there. And get that one on the card too. I'm gonna flip my card over here and keep my ribbon out of the way. We're just gonna very quickly trim off the excess of those little banners. And now the real cutting comes in. We're gonna fussy cut our little butterfly here. We're gonna cut right on the line. It's a nice thick wide line. It's got kind of a wobble to it so you don't have to cut perfectly. Give a little wobble as you go. Okay, I'm back with my little butterfly all cut out. Now what you want to do is take butterfly's wings and just tip them up, leaving the butterfly body nice and flat. I'm going to put some multi-purpose liquid glue all over the body of the butterfly. We're going to glue our butterfly, watercolor butterfly, right on top of our card base. Now at this point, you have a choice. You could just let that multi-purpose liquid glue firm up and leave the wings loose, which is what I tend to do with butterflies. Or you can go in and you can add some dimensionals behind the wings. I'm going to leave this one just the way it is. That's our gorgeous Thinking of You card featuring Beautiful Day stamp set. If you got any questions about that watercolor technique, about the paper and ink card class offer, if there's anything I can do to help you stay crafty, email marisa@kitchentablestamper.com. And to shop 24/7, buzz over to marisaalvarez.stampinup.net. Thanks for watching.